There are markings, Jonesdolf. Looks like some globalist BS, but I can't read it.
The language is that of the Bilderberg Group, which I will not utter here.
Bilderberg?
In the common tongue, it says, "You will own nothing and be happy. Your country will be flooded with rapists from Mordor. We hate Jesus. And we're going to cut off your sons, Johnson." It blows. But long story short, these demons hate everything about us because we're such great guys.
A digital currency where it has been piloted, and there is only one which is clearly now launched in a very small country, but it is piloted on a fairly large scale in China, is of use and of service to all citizens. So it is not something that is good for the elite, or is good for the young, or is good for some versus others. If it is well done and if it is well implemented, it would be of service to all citizens.
There is no such thing as a well-done digital currency.
For her.
For her, and I guess for people, she says, well, it's for all citizens. No, the elites are going to benefit, Miss Lagarde, okay? That's what's going to happen. We all know that. The second clip, by the way, that's fantastic. Oh. This is what I love about AI, is like, when you first sent me that clip, it's like, who's that Gandalf supposed to be? And he calls him Jonesdolf. I love it. So you're with the front line with Joe and Joe Sunday mornings. Thanks, guys, for hanging in there and being patient. And we're gonna go way into the breach. We got a lot to talk about. One of which is I wish, and we'll talk about it. I wish Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I wish he was pro-life. I really do. I wish he was anti-abortion, because then I can enthusiastically vote for him. Because we're going to talk about him. Obviously, Hillary hates Christians, particularly Christians who have white skin. I don't know what her view is of Christians who have black skin, but nonetheless, we know that she hates Christians, and it's like the big fear. We are winning a couple things with Donald Trump. We're going to talk about Trump and whether or not he can. I mean, Joe, I don't know sometimes. I mean, I know our headline today is it's legal. Trump could run for a third term. There are people out there that are actually saying that. But then a couple of jamokes like us and our good people that watch us are like, well, no, the Constitution forbids that. So we're gonna talk about that. And by the way, whether or not, even if he could run for a third term, whether or not that's desirable. Okay. And we have to talk about the income tax, which is something that I think that if you want to talk about how something's been sold so effectively for over 100 years, it's the idea that the country will fall apart along with the rest of the world if you do not allow the federal government to tax your paycheck before you spend one dime on yourself or your family. The idea that they've convinced you that we're coming to an end as a nation if the personal income tax went the way of the dodo bird is such a nefarious scheme. And we're going to talk about that. And we got a video for that. And we got a bunch more. But here, let's by the way, Joe, how are you this morning?
I'm good, dude. I'm good. I'm crazy getting ready for Christmas, but I still got to go buy my fish for Christmas Eve. So I got to squeeze that in next couple days. But for those who don't know, that's what Italians do.
That's right. Biggest thing I miss about Christmas Eve was frying fish. Not that I ever did it, but my mother and my sister would be up at like 4 o'clock in the morning frying fish all day long, and I would contribute later on. But let's go. This is going to be a fast moving conversation. But I want to start with our RFK Jr. Just have a listen, everyone.
We're seeing today is what I call turnkey totalitarianism. They are putting in place all of these technological mechanisms for control we've never seen before. It's been the ambition of every totalitarian state from the beginning of mankind to control every aspect of behavior, of conduct, of thought, and to obliterate dissent. None of them have been able to do it. They didn't have the technological capacity. Today, the mechanisms are being put in place. that will make it so none of us can run and none of us can hide. Within 5 years, we're going to see 415,000 low orbit satellites. Bill Gates says his 65,000 satellites alone will be able to look at every square inch of the planet 24 hours a day. Digital currency that will allow them to punish us from a distance and cut off our food supply. Every right that you have is transformed into a privilege contingent upon your obedience to arbitrary government dictates.
See, I want to vote for him. I really let me put it like this. He goes on to say after that, just to put a finer point on it, very good point. He said, no, I'm paraphrasing, no civilization ever complied its way out of totalitarianism. Okay. But do you see what he's hitting on there? See, this is why we talked about whether or not Donald Trump could even have a third term. I don't want Donald Trump with a third term. And I'm going to throw something out there to you. I voted for Donald Trump 3 times. Donald Trump has given us good judges, okay? And we're seeing good fruit, obviously, of those good judges, not just with the overturning of Roe versus Wade, but in other areas too. But I will say this: at the end of the day, I voted for a pro-choice guy. Donald Trump is pro-choice on abortion. So you want to know what? RFK Jr. doesn't agree with his party that abortion should occur right up to the moment of birth. He believes in restrictions on abortion. Not that I do. But here's my thing. If he's going to talk like this, if he's going to identify the problem, Joe Rossinello, as the new world, the new world order, Christine Lagarde and the rest of them with digital currency and everything else that they would, Bill Gates with his low-hanging satellites. Let me ask you something. If he was able and had the stones to do something about that and follow through, why wouldn't I vote for him for president? Why wouldn't I? I already voted for a pro-choice Republican. I would just be voting for a pro-choice Democrat. To me, he's got better ideas than Donald Trump, and I think he's got more of a will to actually do something about it. What are your thoughts?
Well, a couple things. Sadly, many people who are watching this video, particularly in America, dismiss RFK as a crazy person, as a fringe-like candidate, as a conspiracy theorist. Everything he just said is spot on.
Yep.
It's happening now in Europe, and it's real. And if you disregard what that man is saying, whether you're rich or poor, simply you're foolish, because it's about control. He is spot on. So why are they doing this is the question. Because for the first time, probably since the printing press, the average person has a shot of understanding what's really going on in the world because of the internet.
Right.
That's why you had the Arab Spring. That's why you had Brexit. And that's why Donald Trump was elected. Those are 3 hard examples of information that people used to not have, which they have now. So what do the oligarchs and the power brokers of the world have to do? They have to censor and they have to control you another way. They controlled you by a filter because of the advertising going on particular news stations, particular TV shows, and that was a filter. So you didn't get the whole story. Well, now you kind of are. Not all of it, but a lot more than you did. So they are going to use digital currency and a digital ID to make you comply. That is not conspiracy. That's going on in China right now, and we're seeing it in Europe, and we're starting to see it a lot more in Canada. That's going to be a reality for everybody. And he's warning you, any person that votes for that, no matter what carrot they dangle in front of you, oh, you get to have abortion. Oh, you have DEI. You know, you have this, you have that. None of it matters if you're a slave.
Right.
None of it. And that's the goal, is control. And if you don't think that, if you think that's conspiracy, I got news for you. I don't know what to say. I'll be honest with you.
I'm with you on that. I wouldn't know what to say either. The way I look at it is this: Joe Rossinello, Joe Pasillo away in the breach at the front line with Joe and Joe. The way I look at it is this: Joe in history if you are to be enslaved, someone is putting chains on you. Okay. This modern slavery, the shame of it, the disgraziad element of the whole thing is that people are putting on their own chains
100% and voting for it.
and voting for it.
It's crazy.
You think what happens when a regime comes in that's not friendly to you, Mr. or Mrs. I'm okay with digital currency. And then what you look at on the internet could prevent you from eating or feeding your kids. Why would you take a chance? Why would you, while you're going to let them, so we're going to talk about the personal income tax in a little while. Why would you let them sell you this line that somehow digital currency is really going to benefit you? And by the way, if we don't do it, the currency is going to collapse. Everything they do is just meant for you. Here, they're handing you your chains and saying, here, put them on. But by the way, I champion your freedom. But here, put your chains on. Put your chains on. That's exactly what they're doing. That's exactly.
It's also funny, which he says later on in the clip, and this is something that Joe and I have said for a long time. Power is not given away. It's taken. And what he basically says is any power that is taken from you will never be given back, and it will be exploited. He's telling you this because it's true.
That's right. That's right. And I'm going to tell you this right now. It's one of the reasons why Hillary Clinton and the rest of them, that they're all out there and they try to demonize Christianity and Christian men in particular. They know their biggest threat to their new world order, to their globalist agenda. We know that threat will be more ably fought against. Okay, you could fight against the new world order from primarily a Christian point of view. That's why Hillary Clinton says things like this.
More perfect union. And we fought a civil war over part of it. Mm-hmm. And people have been protesting, for hundreds of years that, things were not as they should be, given our ideals and how we should be moving toward them. So I think that's what makes us so special as a country. And the idea that you could turn the clock back and try to recreate a world that never was, dominated by, let's say it, white men of a certain persuasion, a certain religion, a certain point of view, a certain ideology, is just doing such damage to what we should be aiming for. And we were on the path toward that. I mean, imperfectly, lots of, bumps along the way, but I agree with you, we were on the right trajectory.
Let me.
No, we never were on the right trajectory. What is she smoking? She's the one offering the chains. See, Christianity is liberating. Hillary Clinton and people like her, they want to hand you those chains to put on. That's what she can't stand. No, what do you mean a world that never existed? Christianity built, Catholic Church built
America.
Built it. That's right. And that's what people want. Tim Gordon's out there. Tim Gordon wrote a book on it, okay, about the Catholic Republic. All the Catholic ideas that are all infused in our Constitution. The Protestants didn't come up with that. No offense to Protestants, okay? It was our founders who were not Catholic, okay? But all the ideas, the idea of subsidiarity, which we call federalism, so many ideas in the Constitution came from the 1,000-year reign.
Natural law.
The natural law, which is Aquinas, all came from the 1,000-year reign of the Catholic Church in Europe, the greatest 1,000 years in human history, as far as I'm concerned. Where would I rather live? 1400s in Italy or 2025 in America? Okay, I wasn't persecuted in the 1400s if I live in Italy. You know who else wasn't persecuted in the 1400s in Italy? Black people, okay? Because the Catholic Church came out against slavery, okay? And that's a whole other conversation. If you want to see that conversation, Dr. Paul Kengor joined Joe and I at the front line with Joe and Joe to talk about that. I'm tired of hearing this demonization of white Christian men. White, as E. Michael Jones says, has nothing to do with it. What she's railing against is Christian men. Because if black men were standing side by side with white guys, as they like to call it, and they're all Christian, Hillary Clinton would hate them too.
Well, let's break that down. Why is she against Christian men? Because they don't vote for her, Joe.
That's right. Right.
Why is she for this multicultural population, which basically just came in through the border? Because they do vote for her. That has nothing to do with anything but that.
Right.
It has everything to do with a power grab. It has everything to do with putting people on the dole to basically allow them, or basically open the door for them to vote for her, the oligarch. That has nothing to do with helping the middle class, whether you're black, Hispanic, or white,
Right.
Christian, agnostic, or an atheist. It has everything to do with empowering an elite. And that is exactly what the Democratic Party is promoting. It is no longer the party of your Irish uncle who worked on the railroad. I've said that time and time again. It's the party of the elite, and it's the party of the disenfranchised who are basically bribed by the elite to keep the elite in power. That is the Democratic Party in a nutshell. To think, and why else do people vote for the Democratic Party? Let's talk about the 80%. Because they get their carrot, they get their abortion, they get their one nugget here, their one nugget there. They think that their union ticket somehow is going to be preserved by them.
Right.
And they disregard everything I just said, and they put themselves in slavery as a result of it. We've seen that for 5 decades in the inner city. Nothing has improved in the inner cities in America. And we basically hand, as you said, our change to them and allow them to lock us down.
I don't understand.
It's
do
the
not
sickest
understand
thing, Joe. It's
African. As much as I don't understand
it's the
Irish,
sickest thing I've
Italian,
ever seen in my life.
all right, ethnic, ethnic Germans. As much as I don't understand them voting Democrat, okay, I really don't. Not now. I do not know how African Americans, after having voted for them for decades, how you could look at Detroit and Newark and blame Republicans. You really think? And we know somebody who actually blames Republicans who's a member of our in-law family.
Well, that's just twisted.
Like blaming Republicans. Well, we don't give them enough money. For what? You want to try? Listen, I was taught a long time ago, you take money out of your pocket, you throw it in the toilet bowl, you flush the toilet bowl, you know what happens? You lose your money. So you know what you do? You don't do that, okay? So when you want to give money to Newark, you want to give money to Philadelphia, you want to give money to Detroit, you want to give money to Chicago, you want to give them money, and then if we say, no, we're not giving them a dime, we're not giving you a dime, Mayor of Chicago, Mayor of New York, Mom Don, we're not giving you anything, okay? Well, then you're the reason why. No, you imposed this, you imposed those chains. You put those chains, you convinced all those African Americans to put their chains on when you said you were liberating them sexually. Okay, because remember, before the sexual revolution in the 1960s, Pat Buchanan brought this out 1,000,000 times. The black family in America was more intact than white families. That was before civil rights legislation, not after. Civil rights legislation and the attendant features of welfare and food stamps and everything else, they wrecked the black family. How do you vote for this if you're an intelligent African American? I'm not saying Donald Trump's your effing savior. Believe me when I tell you. I get it. But you're not even working within your party to do anything. You just want to keep spending you want the money to keep going. You want to know why? Because as I've always called them, the Uncle Tom black liberal establishment, because that's what they are, because they get their piece off the top. They get they're hellbound if they don't repent of that. They take the piece of that money, all those black pastors, all those black mayors, all those councilmen, they take the piece off the top and then they throw the crumbs to the people that they claim they're trying to help. How African Americans are still voting for the Democrat Party is beyond me. Beyond me, Joe.
Joe, I hear you. And like I said, the proof's in the pudding. 5 decades. No change. When Donald Trump said, what do you have to lose? He's 100% correct. What do you have to lose? Go to Newark. Go to Patterson. Generations. No change.
Right.
These people don't care about you.
Hey, Joe,
but the thing is, many of them are for the DEI, like initiative. That is not an initiative, first of all, that embraces anything, not even slightly close to what Martin Luther King had to say, that all people are equal. That is nothing more than a power grab. You did it to me, so now I'm going to do it to you. That's what that program should be called.
Exactly.
And that does not make for a nation. We have to start working for what Martin Luther King said: all people are equal in the eyes of God. And if we do that, then we'll have that dream.
Right.
But DEI is nothing more. They should rebrand it. You did it to me, so now I'm going to do it to you.
The new name of that corporation is Grievance Inc. That's exactly what it's the grievance industry. I said one time, because let me tell you something, Joe, the Uncle Tom black liberal establishment does not want to move on from race. Okay. They want to make sure.
Well, it's a tool, Joe. It's
Well,
a
that's
tool
what they
to
wanna make
just
sure
get
they-
power. That's all it is.
Yeah.
It's a tool.
They want to maintain their victim status. Because the idea is that, well, if I could keep convincing you that I'm a victim, a historical victim, okay, and I know this is I don't care if it's controversial. The Jews do the same thing, okay? They do the exact same thing. We're persecuted more than you. No. We're persecuted more than you. No. What about these guys? They were persecuted more than the both of you. It's the grievance industry, because you're able to guilt people into listening to your grievance, okay? And then perhaps you'll be okay, or at least not make too much of a fuss when the government hands out billions and billions and billions of dollars to Grievance Inc. But they don't want to move past that same person that I'm talking about. That we both know. I said one time, I said, look, I'd like to get past all this. And so as an American, I think that race should not be a part of our national dialogue. We should move past. You're black, you're white, whatever, you're Italian, you're Catholic. I'm forget about the identity stuff. Let's just be American. How do we do that? What's it going to take is what I said to this African-American man, who I like very much, by the way. And he says, you know what I hear when I hear that? What is it going to take for you to go away? And you know what word I didn't say. Okay. What is it going to take? I'll paraphrase. What I hear you telling me, what's it going to take for you black guys to just go away and shut up? I said, is that what I said? Is that what I said? Because I'd like to move past it. I'd like to find a solution.
Well, I'll give you the solution. The solution is Christianity.
Well, you're right.
The solution
Tell Hillary
is
Clinton that, Joe.
Catholicism. That's the solution. That says all people are equal in the eyes of God, and I am bound to treat you that way. That's the solution.
Right.
It's not a political solution. It's sure as heck not the DEI that they're selling, which is nothing more than a power grab. So this is my point. There's the solution.
And they're so hypocritical too. They the thing that I don't like about the Uncle Tom black liberal establishment is they keep talking about you're attacking this person because they're black. You're attacking that. Well, listen, when 7 or 8 white liberal men in the early 90s ganged up against a black Supreme Court nominee, Clarence Thomas, you guys, you championed them. You were on their side.
Well, that proves that it's about power.
That's right. It proves it's about, you don't want anybody who wants to run off the liberal plantation. The black liberal establishment and Clarence Thomas and others like him, all right, have been screaming for decades. It's time to run off the plantation. But who would somebody who I was referencing? Okay, he was on the side of Joe Biden, Ted Kennedy, Howell Heflin, big fat stupid slob from Alabama. All right, Herbert Kohl, billionaire from Wisconsin, Paul Simon from Chicago, Howard Metzenbaum. Okay, you were on the side of those guys while they ganged up and wrongfully accused a black man of committing sexual harassment. You were on their side. You didn't want to hear what he had to say. Clarence Thomas is my hero.
Dude, he's a national treasure.
He is my hero.
He's a national treasure.
This is a joke. He looked at Biden in his face. He goes, this is a joke. He's been one of our greatest Supreme Court justices. They used to say, well, he just does what Scalia does. No. That's not the case. Clarence Thomas has always had his own mind. All right. And by the way, they clipped Scalia because they didn't like him. But Clarence Thomas is a hero because he got right up there and he looked at them right in the face. He says, you're trying to lynch me right now. Right now, all you guys are trying to lynch me. Right, that's what this is. And that was one of the only times Republicans actually came together and told the Democrats. They did the same thing with Brett Kavanaugh, where they told the Democrats, "You're not voting down this nomination." But I'm tired. I'm real tired of the so-called, like you said, the DEI Africa. Ketanji Brown Jackson is a joke. She's a pure DEI hire, and disgraziad Republicans just rubber stamped her. Just rubber stamped her, let her go in. She couldn't even tell you what a woman was. Joe, what that clip in the beginning with Alex Jones playing Gandalf, all right, and Tucker Carlson playing Frodo, all right. You're seeing the implementation of the New World Order unfold right in front of your face, and this is one of the areas, obviously with race, to keep civil strife going because they need that. That they really, really should focus on, and we need to fight against it, Joe. We really do.
Well, 100%. And like I said, the answer is very simple. It's simply Christianity. I'm married to an African-American woman. I have 5 children. Race is not an issue in my house. We all are Catholic, and we go to a Polish Catholic church, and no one gives us a problem.
Right.
We live a very nice life. No one gives us a problem. It's, to be honest with you, it's about power, and it's not about justice. Justice is found in Christianity. It's found in Christianity, and any state that rejects Christianity becomes a totalitarian state. That is historically proven, and that is what Hillary Clinton is selling.
Did you hear what Tim Kaine said a few weeks ago in the Senate when he says, there are people that actually think that our rights come from God and they don't come from law and government. Tim Kaine, who's supposedly a Catholic, said that. He says, because guess who believes that rights come from God? The Taliban. That's what they believe in the Middle East. I'm sitting there saying to myself, and the media will allow him to get away with it. So you're telling us, Tim Kaine, that you disagree with the founding fathers.
Well, the problem is, Joe, with that statement, it's so dumb. But my problem is people digest it.
Oh, yeah.
You see, that's my problem, because here's the deal. If you're a manipulator, and there's tons of manipulators in this world, we've all seen them to make money. They're liars, thieves. They're nothing more than liars and thieves. They're playing a demographic, a population, to empower them. Any person who's objective and educated, you don't even have to be that educated, should basically reject that statement. But he's saying it because he knows it resonates.
Yeah.
You see, that's my problem with America. The answer to that issue is information. We have to educate our people better, and they have to be informed. I am convinced, I said this to my wife over dinner last night, the 60% that really are, maybe they're not like politically sold on either side, they vote, they just want to have a good life. There's a lot of people like that. If we simply educated them to the truth, to what's going on, being able to see through the nonsense, having a better public education system that basically teaches kids to be prepared when they go into life, to understand compound interest, to understand how the law works, to understand how leverage works in business. If we could do that, that 60% will vote those people out every time.
Right.
But that is exactly why they do it the way they do it. And that is on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
People have to understand that.
Right.
Everything is done deliberately. Successful people do not become successful by chance. They have strategies, they have long-term goals, they have projections, and they know what they're doing, and they've been overwhelmingly successful over the decades doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And our people, to your point, they eat it up.
Right.
They eat it up. They look at those people and they're like, yeah, as they eat pork rinds and drink Mountain Dew in their chair.
Yep. No, it's exactly right. And then we're going to move on. Because I do want to make sure I have limited time today, but I want to make sure we get to Donald Trump and we get to the income tax. But yeah, Tim Kaine and like at least Ted Cruz really went back at him and says, I'm paraphrasing, but he says, you really need to go back and take a history lesson. Like, no, what do you mean? All right. See, because I would say to Tim Kaine, okay, so if the rights come from government, what happens when a right-wing government that wants to take away your rights
That's
comes
misinformation.
See, when rights are acknowledged to come from God, basic rights, the right to life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, free speech, everything that's in the Bill of Rights, when those are acknowledged to come from God, that means the government can't take them away, Tim. See, I had this conversation back in New York when I was serving in New York City. All right, with a guy I used to work with. Well, you guys believe that just rights just fall out of the sky from your God. I said, what's to prevent you from taking away my rights? If you say rights come from government, what's to prevent you from? Well, no, rights should be given or taken away based on consensus. I said, wrong answer. That's the reason why we have a constitution. You don't rely on political capriciousness. Okay. You rely on the idea that we are all bound to acknowledge that rights come from God, and you, the government, and you, my fellow citizen, cannot take certain rights away from me. That's enough about that. But you're with the front line with Joe and Joe Pasillo, Joe Rossinello. We have a good chat going. A lot of our friends are in there right now. All right, so let's talk about Donald Trump. Let me play this.
And now I met Alan Dershowitz, and he said the legal thing about 4 more years. And I said, Alan, I agree with you. So we can do it. Think about it.
Alan's here someplace. Where's Alan?
Alan is here. Oh, he had a flight. Alan is here. Think about it.
Thank you.
Maybe I will be the first one who told me, or second. Yeah.
She said, think about it. I'll give you another 250.
Let's cut to the chase. I don't care what sort of legal gymnastics Alan Dershowitz or anybody else comes through. The fact is, even if Donald Trump was able to run for a 3rd term, I'm done with Donald Trump. He laid a foundation. He was a good person to lay the foundation to get everything set up. Now after he's done, he's got to step aside, and we have to find somebody who's actually going to start doing things. Okay, that we want. Has Donald Trump done many good things? I think so. We talked about the Supreme Court going back to 2016. That's why we voted for him. And we have very good fruit that has come from the court. We didn't get everything we wanted. You're never going to get everything you want. But the Supreme Court has done a lot to undo bad precedent that was established over the course of the last 100 years, not the least of which was overturning Roe versus Wade. But it's time for Trump to go. I mean, he's obviously not going to do anything that he said to really ramp up going after the deep state. It's obvious that he's had a year. He's not going to.
He's not going to take it as far as he basically said he would.
That's right. So now it's time for somebody who will.
Ultimately, I just want to break that clip down a little bit. That woman is Mrs. Adelson. She is a billionaire.
Yep.
I think she's worth somewhere along the lines of like $60 billion. She gave Trump $100 million when he ran, and she's saying she would give another 250 if he ran again. She gives money for the Jewish lobby and for Israel to basically, have the interests of Israel. That is why she gives that money. Why? Why did that press conference just go on? I want people to understand how politics works. There was just a horrible, horrible crime committed in Australia. Jewish people were killed, and it was horrible. Politics leverage crises. That is what it does. That press conference is the result of the Bondi Beach slaughter that just took place, and they're using it. Right. That's what politicians do. People don't pick up on that. They see light when something bad happens, and that's how they push an agenda. I want people to understand how that works. It really has nothing to do, in many ways, with Trump having a 3rd term. It has everything to do with they saw something that was horrible that happened, that everyone should be against, and they use it to push an agenda, pro-Israel, which goes against pro-America. We should only help Israel when it's in our interests. I have no problem with Israel. Only when it's in our interests.
Right.
If it's not in our interests, the United States isn't what it was. Our country is a mess. We should not be contributing to the Ukraine, and we should not be funding Israel. If you want us to fund you, then you have to become the 51st state. And then I'm all for funding you. But if you want to be an independent nation, I'm not funding your entire government. I'm not funding your every whim. And that is exactly what that woman is giving money for. You think
Right.
she's giving $250 million because she likes Donald Trump's hair?
Well, a
She
lot
has
of things.
some good hair too, by the way. Let me just point that out.
Yeah,
No, it's to push an agenda.
I think
It's
one of the
not
problems-
an American agenda. And that is what Donald Trump campaigned upon. And that is what I wanted him to do. And this press conference, if you ask me, is a slap in the face of every American who wanted an American first agenda.
Right.
And that is the truth.
I agree with you on that. I think because look, I don't blame Israel for getting attacked 2 years ago, okay, when they parachuted out of the sky. But my argument has been since that time they've squandered any goodwill that they would have gotten. Okay, people can watch, like we said, with social media and everything else. People can watch videos. They could see what was happened to those Jewish women and everything else, and being dragged.
It's horrible.
It's terrible,
Joe. But I'll
you
be honest.
squandered. But
I actually think that Hamas did that to the degree that they did that because they knew the response that was going to take place. That response turned the whole world against Israel. And I got news for you. There's I can't think of his name. He's an actor, a Jewish actor, Manny
Patinkin.
He's saying that. He's basically saying, do you realize what you're doing?
Right.
You're destroying Israel by your reaction. I personally think that was a strategy because they played Netanyahu. They knew how he would respond. And it's worked because the whole world has turned on them, including in America, not the politicians, because they're the ones getting money, but the people. That was a horrendous reaction, and history is going to prove it. I'm not advocating what Hamas did. Horrible. They did it, and they filmed it because they knew Netanyahu would react the way he did. And ultimately, and this is what that gentleman says, you're undermining the nation, and you don't even realize it.
Well, the thing is, and Israel should have shown proper restraint when it came to the retaliation, because again, as much as I could see a Jewish woman, an Israeli woman getting dragged into the back of a van, all right, and beaten and bloodied and everything else, I could also see videos of women and children getting killed in Gaza. So the fact is that, listen, like I said, whatever goodwill from the world, and you're right. I mean, look, if that's the case, if you're right, I know you're speculating. If you're right about that, then Hamas played Netanyahu like a fiddle. Okay, then they outsmarted him. Now they're evil. They're evil in their views because they knew that if that was the case, if they actually foresaw the way you described it, what the response was going to be, then they were willing to sacrifice all those women.
Well, that's horrible. They're an evil organization.
No, they are. They're terrible. They're a terrible
organization. But they
organization.
don't represent all the people, and that does not give you carte blanche to destroy people.
You're right.
And that's why the world is against you. They're not against you for going after Hamas. I'm all for that. They need to be dealt with, but that does not give you permission to kill innocents. Sorry, doesn't. And the world is going to react to that. How they're going to react to that, eventually what's going to happen in America, I'm going to tell you right now. I'll predict it. The new generation of educated people who are basically going to occupy the halls of power in America are going to turn the faucet off. That's what's going to happen. That's happening very soon, Joe.
I was going to throw it out there to you based on that. See, I think let's call them those who don't want to see any disruption in the relationship between the United States and Israel. Okay. Of course, Miriam Adelson is going to offer him $250 million. That's even if he was able to run. Okay. Regardless of what Alan Dershowitz says. But if he was able to, and she popped in $250 million, because what they fear, and we've spoken about this, you see, whether the reason why they hate Nick Fuentes is because Nick Fuentes has influence. The reason why they hate a lot of these other podcasters like Tucker Carlson, because Tucker Carlson has a tremendous amount of influence. Because the next iteration of the America First presidential candidate, okay, let's say, assuming it's not Donald Trump, is probably going to have a lot to say about foreign aid in general and Israel in particular. And obviously that's what they don't want. See, if J.D. Vance, if he's the guy, if he says, well, you know what, we're going to have to rethink. We're going to have to rethink our aid that we give to Israel every year. We give them billions of dollars every year and weapons and everything. We're going to have to rethink that a little bit. He's going to have a lot of people on his side. And Miriam Adelson and other people are going to be like, look, we're going to have to do something about this. And hopefully it creates some sort of a situation where there's at least a dialogue of some kind going on about Israel's role in the Middle East. A lot of the things that they've done, means by which they can be protected. Look, Joe, I mean, we're not going to get into the weeds here.
Joe, they deserve to have a country.
Right, but there's a lot of people that are saying that even the attack on October was a plan. And I don't dismiss
I don't even go there, because that you have to have evidence to say that.
And there seems to be some. But
well,
again,
what I would just say, I don't go in that direction, but what I do think is, I think there was some strategy on Hamas's part for that. Just by playing the long game. But also the Pope just recently came out. The answer is a two-state solution. The Pope just said that. That is the answer. It is a two-state solution. Palestine deserves to have a nation just as Israel deserves to have a nation. And all wrongdoers needed to be rooted out. If you maybe threw the people a bone, maybe they'll help you root out the bad people. Right. Maybe. So this is my point. You can't just blanket everybody as bad on both sides. And
I agree.
And that is the solution. That is the solution. And you don't get to bulldoze people. You don't get to basically destroy an area with the hopes that you'll just take it and rebuild it. And you sure as heck don't get to kill innocent people. Sorry.
Right.
Don't get to do that. And that's why the world is turning against you. And I got news for you. If you were smart, you would stop it. And I don't think they're going to.
Well, here's the historical example. Here's the historical example I would give. I don't know all the details of the deal. Bill Clinton, to his credit, almost had a peace deal. Okay. And famously, it was reported back then, Yasser Arafat looked at Bill Clinton and said, "You're going to get me killed." Okay. There are people in the world, and that was part of that first clip we played, the parody clip with Frodo and Gandalf and Alex Jones and Tucker Carlson. There is a new world order, Joe, that does not want peace. And I think when you specifically look at the parties involved in the Middle East, I mean, Arafat saying to Clinton, when he's this close to a deal, ready to sit down and sign a deal that would have created a peace, like or hate Bill Clinton, all right? I don't like the guy. But Arafat was in an honest moment, says, "You're going to get me killed," because there are people that don't want peace. There's people in Israel that don't want peace. There's people amongst the Palestinians and Hamas and the Arabs that don't want peace. They want the strife. And who's suffering more than anything? And we'll put a finer point on regular people. Regular people are the ones that suffer. And neither side give a shit, to be honest with you. That's the disgusting part, okay? They don't care. The Jews go in there and they kill women and children. Hamas and the people who let's say, are ostensibly the leadership over there, they allow them to be killed. They plan for them, as you alluded to be killed, okay? Part of their strategy. Well, Netanyahu will react and we'll get the goodwill of the world because all these women and children will be killed. Yeah, but you're willing to sacrifice. Yeah, well, we're doing it for Allah. This is the type of worldview that's got to come to an end, Joe.
100% agree.
It really does. Now, like I said, my time is limited, unfortunately, today. So we have a little bit of time. I do want to get into something that Donald Trump just paid a lot of lip service to. Really didn't do anything about it. I don't anticipate him doing anything about it. But let's look at a brief history of the personal income tax.
Schools teaching that there was no federal income tax the first 137 years America was a country. Because there was no legal federal income tax between 1776 until 1913 when they amended or changed the U.S. Constitution. They imposed an income tax for 12 years during the Civil War and in 1894 and 1895, but that was found unconstitutional. It was in the Supreme Court case Pollock v. Farmers Loan and Trust Company, and they struck down the federal income tax. And it remained unconstitutional for another 17 years until 1913 when they passed the 16th Amendment and changed the Constitution. And it has been a little over 120 years since they did that, which means there was no legal federal income tax for the majority of American history. People think that all of these taxes, all of this government intrusion into our lives is the norm, but it is not the norm. This is the norm. This is 1776, and the reason America was the manufacturing center of the world in 1912. America had the largest and most prosperous middle class in the history of the world. American steel, American oil, American automotive. But in 1913, they changed the Constitution, which was the same year that they created a national bank. So right at the same time as they gave the government the ability to reach into our pockets and take our money, they also gave a small group of powerful bankers a monopoly over the printing of the dollar. And they print money out of thin air. They lend the money that they printed to the government, and the government agrees to pay them back with interest using the money that they take from us. And that is why the dollar has been so devalued. That is why you can't afford a house. And it's why college is so expensive. Because for 137 years, America was about prosperity. And since then, it's been about whatever this is. And this is why I wrote a book on the banking system. And
that's so well explained.
See, that's the thing. See, because it's explained simply. Because just to say things simple and truthful is all you need. We don't need the personal income tax. Let me make a couple quick points. Number one is Elon Musk reposted that on X. That video's got 17 million views.
That's wonderful. That's
and
information.
That is why they hate the
power.
oligarchs. Yeah, exactly. That's why they hate social media, because I don't know how very well known that guy is, okay? But that video was reposted by Elon Musk and got 17 million views. And that opens people's eyes. That makes people start to question. I want to do primarily with our show, both the one we do on Veritas Catholic Radio Network and this, my primary goal is to try to speak as a Catholic man in America, try to have people be open-minded about coming into the church or coming home to the church, whatever the case may be. That's always my first and foremost goal. On the level of money, Joe, and the way the middle class in particular and the working class in particular, two main ways that we are robbed, and I mean robbed, of our labor. Number one is we need a new form of taxation, and it doesn't just start with it starts with the personal income tax. But then it also, and this is what DeSantis is trying to do, it also has to extend to the property tax. The property tax has to be declared unconstitutional. You should not have to pay rent to the state to live on a piece of property that you bought and you are paying off to the bank. So taxes in general, the personal income tax and the property tax, if you ask me if I could change a couple things on that level, if could be influential in any way, like a Tucker Carlson or people like that, I would champion changing the tax system and ending usurious compound interest. Not just, by the way, for when people buy homes, okay, where we don't have the time today to get into how that whole thing is just a scam. I'm talking about when you buy a car, they ship you off to the bank to go get a usurious loan. Everything, your credit card, everything you buy has an interest payment attached to it. That is, as E. Michael Jones has pointed out a million times, that is the theft of your labor. So if I had a couple things that I wish I could do, I pray that I could do, is to open people's eyes and have real change on taxes, and open people's eyes and have real change on how interest is applied in this country. Because those are the two biggest ways the working class and middle class people are having their labor stolen from them.
Couple points. Notice how he said that took place in 1913. This issue, which we have seen recently come to a head, has been going on for over 100 years. The power grab from the people. This is nothing new. People didn't realize it, again, because of the information filter, which is the news. The free press is not on the side of the American people. That's point number one. Point two, both the Republicans and the Democrats would fight Joe Pasillo on that platform tooth and nail. Because if that actually took place, that would affect the banking system in America dramatically, which in turn would affect the stock market, which in turn would affect the wealth of the elite, which vote for Democrats and Republicans because they don't care because they're above it. That would require a revolution. There is no way that power brokers would allow that to happen without a fight. And it would be a fight like nobody's business, because going back to what RFK said in the first clip, power is never given. It's taken. That is why they were afraid of Donald Trump. It had nothing to do with you, the MAGA people. It had everything to do with the institutional democracy, which they were terrified that he was going to take power from them. And to a degree, he has. It's just not as far as I wanted it. And that's why, to a degree, I am disappointed. I wanted him to go much further. He did give us some things, a lot more than just about any president in my lifetime. So on that respect, I'll take it. It should have went a lot further. And he refused to do it. Maybe because he didn't want that revolution. Maybe because he realized what I'm saying, that it would take a colossal conflict to basically take money away, as Joe Pasillo just suggested, from people who control everything. And that needs to happen.
Right.
Talk about one thing that I want to get out of this show. It's that. I want the country to return to the people again, because it does not. We don't have power. It's an illusion.
Right.
They throw you crumbs. Your vote is about a few executive orders that get taken away the next president comes. Our foreign policy, our military industrial complex, and our budget is the same, no matter who the president is. And people need to see that, but they don't. And they just go along, and then they get upset as if something new or truly innovative is going to happen with the next presidency. It's the same crap because the machine runs it. You don't. And that has to change.
Well, there's good. Listen, like I said, there's a lot of things that have to change, but I'm talking about just on that financial level. If you look at all the, like, this is what I mean about people. If you're content with getting robbed, then I have no pity for you.
Joe, I agree. I
have no sympathy for you. If you don't speak up, do you know that they get up there and they talk about raising taxes on the rich, and everybody out there is just like, go get those rich guys. You realize, you stupid idiot? In other words, that there's a list of taxes that are as long as your arm in the federal tax code, okay, that all hit you. They're all regressive taxes. Do you know that you pay about $1 a gallon in federal income tax on a gallon of gasoline? And then when John McCain, God rest his soul, said, you know, there was a problem with gas at the time during that campaign. Gas was high, and John McCain said, well, maybe we should have a gas tax holiday to give the American people some relief. Barack Obama said, well, let's not get hasty. Let's
break that down. Why did he say that?
Why?
Because he gets money from them.
That's right. So the thing is, the list of taxes. Me and my brother used to have this conversation years ago. In other words, the list of taxes that hit you as a working class person are as long as my arm, and they're all designed that way. Primary is the property tax. Now that's more of obviously a local tax. Okay, that's imposed by the county, let's say, or the town that you live in. But still, it should be declared unconstitutional. But so many of the taxes in the tax code. That's why Warren Buffett pays less of a percentage of his income than his secretary. Now he pays a lot more in absolute dollars, but that's why it's all got to go. It's all got to be torched.
Let's just circle to that. Why do they allow Warren Buffett and people like him to pay a little bit of money?
Because he's giving them money.
He funnels it right back. It's a kickback. I'm going to give you a break, so you're going to funnel that money that you would have paid me anyway into a political action committee, which comes to me.
Right.
So they're getting it. They're just redirecting it.
Right.
That's why when Donald Trump said that famously, when he first ran, when Hillary said, you vote for tax cuts for the rich, he said, you do the same thing. And why wouldn't I take advantage of it? That's exactly why. It's a kickback. It's just it's a circle.
Right.
And people, to your point, Joe, are okay with it.
Right.
I'm not, you see. Maybe I'm an idealist. Maybe I'm just someone who, frankly, is odd. And I am a little odd.
You are.
Fair enough. But I'm not going to accept that. I work too hard. And I don't work to enrich a person or to give money to the government so they could flush it down the toilet. Sorry.
Right.
I'll
That's
never be okay with that. Ever.
No, listen, I think that like everybody's got their, we started talking about Donald Trump. I don't know. Donald Trump's not getting a third term. But everybody out there, many people, not everybody. I know Nick Fuentes has talked about what a real workable political coalition, some of the fundamental things that the people at that table would have to agree on. And I would say this, if Joe and Joe had a seat at that table, okay, and I think we represent a lot of people, okay, I'm not saying take interest rates for argument's sake, take the way compound interest itself is collected in America by those you owe money to, credit card, car company, the bank who holds the mortgage on your house. I'm not saying that you shock the system and send the system into a turmoil, but you start to implement transitional policies that in a very short period of time, not immediately, but start to implement policies that change the way businesses could do business. If a bank wants to lend you money, you are not going to charge 6% interest. You're not going to front load all those interest. Yeah, I told you, I did the calculation. Okay. After a $500,000 mortgage, 30-year note at 6%. At the end of the first 12 years, you still have only paid off $100,000 on principal.
How is that legal?
That's what I'm saying. And those people say, well, that's the way it works. We can't have the banks suffer. F the banks. I'm worried about you and you're worried about Jamie Dimon? Is that a joke? Are you that in chains that you think that the world's going to come to an end if the usurers are not allowed to apply their usury to us?
And here's another point. Usury is a capital sin.
That's right.
When's the last time you heard somebody say that who's a politician?
That's right.
That is a fast track to hell.
That's right.
Usury.
That's
Sorry,
right.
it is. Look it up.
The way you do banking is very simple. Now, a lot of people, Michael Jones points out, a lot of people nitpick between, let's say, what's a fee and what's interest. I look at it this way. If you need to borrow $500,000 from the bank is allowed to charge you a one-time fee. It gets added in, okay? And proportionally, every time you make a payment, the proper proportion goes to principal and the other proportion goes to your fee.
That would take a revolution, Joe. I'm going to be honest with you.
Well, then we need one. Then we need one.
Everything you said, that would take a revolution. You would see people on both sides of the aisle. There would not be one person in the Congress or Senate, not one, that would vote for that because they wouldn't be there the next term. You would have to have a death wish to vote for that. And that's where people have to see. The transparency has to be seen. You have to see through them. They don't represent you. Right. How does BlackRock get away with what they're doing? How does Google keep its monopoly? How? How isn't that broken up right now? Because it's not in the interests of the doning class, the elite class, which basically says that you have no power and you don't count. How are you okay with that?
Well, then listen, stronger regimes in this world have been overturned, okay? Have been overthrown, where you had tremendous change, okay? You had the Soviet Union, all right? I mean, as far as it goes, just a labor movement backed by the Catholic Church, by the way, and the Catholic Pope, a labor movement in Poland began the death spiral of Soviet communism in the Eastern Bloc, okay? So these banks are not as powerful as the Soviet Union once was. They have a lot of power, don't get me wrong.
Nothing would make me happier to see them get flushed down the toilet.
Who do we have on? I got to go in a few minutes. Who do we usually have on? We have on Dawn Brohon and Michael Graney, right, to talk about distributism. In other words, widespread ownership of the means of production, not state ownership of the means of production. Widespread ownership. What's the primary asset that you would consider the means of production. Land, your own property. That's why they make it hard to own property, to own a home. Because if you have land, you have an asset. You have something that you could work with now to build prosperity for yourself and your family and your community, okay? But they made it through usurious compound interest and, by the way, property taxes. That's why they both have to come to an end. They made it where you got houses that are selling for $500,000, $600,000, $700,000, okay, in New Jersey that you shouldn't be paying any more than $300,000 or $400,000 for. Okay. But because when there's free money, when you could go to the bank and go get money, obviously this is going to elevate the price of the asset. So housing goes up. So you're paying more money, you're paying interest, then you have to pay Morris County, New Jersey, or Bergen County, New Jersey. You have to pay them their exorbitant tax. It's all got to come to an end. Now, as far as the property tax is concerned, that's got to come to an immediate end. Okay. And DeSantis is working on that. And that somebody should actually if it hasn't happened already, somebody should file suit and start the ball rolling and get in front of this Supreme Court with that case where they could tell
John Roberts would never take that case.
Doesn't matter. He'll get overridden on that one. He will get overridden on that one. I firmly believe that. All right. And the asshole Democrats, they're not going to do. There's not a tax in this world. I'm sorry, I cursed, Joe. There's not a tax in this world that they don't love. So we know that about them. Okay. But at the end of the day, somebody's got to get this case up to the Supreme Court. Okay. That's number one. And we have to start really talking about how interest is applied in this country. We'll leave it at that. I'm going to give you the last word, Joe Resinello.
Ultimately, again, it comes down to educate yourself and don't be satisfied. This is another thing that makes me sick with people. They just say, well, that's the way it is. Nothing gets done if you say that. You have to raise the consciousness of people. That's what this show is about. Joe and I do not get paid. We're trying to raise the consciousness of the American people. Start asking questions. Start educating yourself. And don't be satisfied with the status quo. Because ultimately, America, since the beginning of the 20th century, the quality of life has gone down. And the next generation, it's going to go down exponentially from my generation. And I'm not the only person saying that. People 1,000,000 times smarter than me are saying that right now. Mm-hmm. How you could be satisfied with that, how you could basically empower people who are working against your own interest, frankly, is beyond my understanding.
Well, that's why we're here. That's why we're doing our thing and throwing our hat in the ring. Help us to get out to a wider audience, guys. Help us to get out and have a seat at that table. If that proverbial table happens to be there over the next couple of years, we have some ideas on this front, and we want to see our political candidates that are going to start championing these ideas. All right, and they better start responding to us and not the banks and not the lobbies and not the super PACs and not foreign countries or anything else. You're going to start to be responsive.
It's funny, just real quick. Somebody says, Joe, I agree with those school taxes. Why? So they could pump your kids full of information that there's more than two genders, that a man can marry a man, that a kid could transition his sex, which has those people have a life expectancy, not even 40 years old, 37. You're okay with that? You're okay with basically people who don't understand basic civics, who don't understand how compound interest works? You're okay with that? Then you deserve what you get.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. But help us get out to a wider audience. Hit a like, a subscribe, a share. We're all over the place today. I believe we're actually going on TikTok also. So if you're watching us there, help us out. We're going live every Sunday. Generally speaking, we're going to try to shoot for early morning like this. And we always thank you, and we thank always for your support. And remember, until next week, that I was just going to say, Joe, no, I think that listener was saying they agree with us about those taxes.
I'm sorry. I went nuts.
That's why when you said that, I was like, I didn't take it the way you did. Anyway, don't hold it against us. Sometimes there's miscommunication.
And
we love you all very much.
I'm sorry.
And remember, until next week, that our conversation is your conversation, and that conversation is going on everywhere. We'll talk to you soon.